The name of our Parashat, Emor, starts with God telling Moses, quote, "Speak, Emor, to the priests, the sons of Aaron," end quote, and tell them to observe various priestly commandments. Interestingly, the usage of Emor for speaking brings to mind God's first act in creation, quote, "Vayomer Elohim yehi or," and God said, "Let there be light." 2 chapters later in our parasha, God commands Moses, quote, "Daber el bnei Israel ve'amart alehem ani Hashem Elohechem." Daber ve'amarta. Speak to the Israelites and say to them all about the special celebrations of the Moadim, holidays, that are the, quote, "fixed times of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions, mikra'e kodesh," end quote, pointing to the spring and summer festivals of Passover and Shavuot, and the fall festival of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. But before relating to these Moadim, the Torah refers to the Sabbath, saying, quote, "On 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day there shall be a Sabbath of complete rest, a sacred occasion, mikra kodesh. You shall do no work. It shall be a Sabbath of the Lord throughout your settlement," end quote. Thus, the command of the Sabbath is mentioned here as an introduction to the Moadim, even though it was already mentioned twice before, once at the end of the story of creation in Genesis, and again at the 4th of the 10 commandments in the book of Exodus. Why this repetition? The artist Avner Moriah's picture for this parsha might lead us to an understanding. The illustration the artist dedicated to Parashat Emor is very similar to the one he had painted to illustrate the story of creation in Parashat Bereshit. This most colorful picture images the 6 days of creation, depicting the non-anthropomorphic spirit of God as a 3-dimensional spiral, the tohu as erratically arrayed amorphous yellow shapes, the firmament, the separation of the water and the land, the earth's flora, fowl, fish and sea creatures, land animals, and finally the very prominent images of Adam, Eve, the crown of creation. The artist's decision to repeat here the illustration with most of the elements that he had painted for creation, the creation story, seems to also allude to the reason why the law of the Sabbath is repeated here, and why each time the law was repeated, the Israelites were reminded that working 6 days and resting on the 7th day, they were imitating God and his acts of in creation. The reference to the Sabbath and the story of creation may help us understand the primordial concept of Moadim. On the 4th day, it says, Vayomer, quote, "God said, let there be light in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night. They shall serve as signs for the set times, Moadim, the days and years," end quote. The word Moadim is related to the verb to assign, to appoint, or to fix. Once the sun and the moon were created, they enabled man to mark day and night, and the month and the seasons, thus enabling the termination of the dates of the Moadim. As we read, set times of the Lord, the sacred occasion, Mikra'e Kodesh, which you shall celebrate each in its appointed time. Like the Sabbath, the Moadim have their origin in the creation story. God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day, and so it should be with man. God also created the sun and the moon, but once they were in the skies, it fell to men to fix the times and appoint the dates of the various Moadim. So they fall in the right season, Passover in the spring and Sukkot in the fall, and on the right day. Clearly, in Parashat Emor, we return to the story of creation while being commanded about celebration of the Moadim as well as observance of the Sabbath.